All right, guys, Momentum is back with the Vida E+, and I say back because this bike was last updated in 2022. And since then, they are back in 2025 with a whole new redesign, and I'm talking a new motor, a new drivetrain system, and frankly, almost an entirely new bike. So let's go through all the numbers, the specs, and features. We'll go out for a ride and talk all things about the new Momentum Vida E+. All right, guys, let's talk about all the basics and just kind of overview of the new Momentum Vida E+. Now, this bike is Class 2 shipped to you, but it is Class 3 capable, and you can adjust those speed setting limits in the ride control app that pairs with this bike. Now, on top of that, this bike is priced at $2,480. And in terms of safety certifications, this one is pretty well covered. We have UL 2271 on the battery. We have UL 2849 on the e-bike's electrical system. And then they also did the EN standard or European standard for electrical safety testing for electric assisted bikes, according to European standards. So whether you're here in the US or over in Europe, this bike really has done all of the kind of thorough testing to ensure its electrical components are safe and ready to go. Now, when it comes to weight, they say this bike weighs 61.7 pounds, but I should clarify that's without the extra accessories you see on the bike the way it sits right now. So all of these accessories are optional, things like the G2 pannier bag, the MIK rear rack, front rack, rear view mirrors, headlight. Those are all considered additional upgrades. So if you want to weigh the bike without those, it comes out to be right about 61.5 pounds. I think I had a difference of maybe a quarter pound. But when you put these accessories on the way it sits right now, it goes to about 69 pounds. So even fully kitted out, it's still a sub 70 pound e-bike, which is a really solid kind of weight to come in that still has all that capability and accessories on it. Now, when it comes to things like colors and sizing, this comes in two frame sizes. It's a small and a large. Now, the small fits riders 5'1" to 5'9", and the large fits riders from 5'8" up to 6'3". Now, I'm 5'11", so I fall right in the middle of that large frame, and we were sent the large frame for testing, and it fit me really well. I had no issues with fit whatsoever. Now, when it comes to colors, this is the Mountain Air color. It's a slightly off-white, not a complete white color. It's got the black accents. And then they also have Abyss Black. If you want more of a blacked out look, you can do that. But if you want something a little more fun, they have their Caramel Cinnamon, which is kind of an orangish red color as well. All three give roughly everybody something that should fit most people's personality or wants. Now, in terms of the frame geometry for this large specific frame, we have a 45.2-inch wheelbase from front hub to rear hub or vice versa. We have about 8 inches of adjustability in the seat post. Our standover height is a nice low 16 inches, so getting on and off is much easier with that lower step through height. You don't have to throw your leg over a top tube if you're concerned about things like that. And then you have an 18-inch reach up top. Now, when it comes to wheels and tires, we have 26-inch alloy wheels that are wrapped in a 26 by 2.4 CST commuter tread pattern style tire that rolls really nice, really quiet. It's got a nice rubber compound on it. Feels good when you're out there on a bike path. Now, in terms of maximum payload, the maximum payload for this bike is 300 pounds, and that includes the bike, your gear, the rider. So you've got some room to kind of bring your extra stuff with you, whether you're commuting or just going out for some fun on the weekends or recreation. You've got the ability to carry some extra gear with you, just so long as you don't surpass that 300-pound max payload. Now, when it comes to things like fenders and racks, we talked about accessories and the weight differences earlier. Let's talk about what those accessories are. So the things you see on the bike right now are considered, I'll go through what's optional. These are the G2, kind of an all-weather pannier bag system. It's a really nice bag. It's got multiple pockets from the top. It's got a rollover top that you can close, as well as side access panels, and a little more durable built on the bottom side. So as it receives things like puddles or whatever you go through on your daily grind, this lower end that's more visible to those areas will have a little bit more beefed up protection. And then you also have some nice reflective accents on the sides of the bag. Now, on top of that, we have front and rear racks that are optional, and these are MIK compatible racks, meaning you can get all sorts of accessories and gear and security options that interface with these racks. They're kind of, in my opinion, some of the best racks out there, the MIK. Now, up front, you can hold 33 pounds, and in the rear, you can hold 55, still keeping within that 300-pound max payload. Now, up top, the rear view mirrors that are added on the bar ends, I really like having those. Those are an additional accessory as well. The twist throttle up top on the grip is an additional accessory. So this bike is throttled e-bike, but that does require purchasing the throttle grip up top, and I think it's roughly $50, $55, not crazy expensive. And some people want a throttle and some people don't, so it's really kind of fair to just leave it as an optional accessory. The headlight up front, the Recon, is a nice LED adjustable headlight. That's an optional accessory. And the fenders front and back, they are metal fenders. They have nice mounting points. They're nice and stable. They don't rattle. Those are also additional accessories. So take those things off, and that's how the bike ships at $2,480, or add one, two, or all of those accessories to bring that price up a little bit, but get all those extra features you want, may or may not want, depending on the rider. Now let's talk about the lighting. So we do have that front LED headlight that I said is optional, and a rear reflector. So there's no tail light option or brake light or turn signals. So not full on dedicated commuter setup, but it is capable to run that front headlight should you want to do some low light riding or just some extra visibility when you're out there on the trail. All right, so let's talk about the motor and power delivery and the battery on the new Momentum Vida, because things like the motor are where the bike got kind of a new look and new makeover. So we'll start with this motor being a 500 watt rear hub motor, and it's called the Sync Drive Move S. Now this thing can peak at 750 watts, giving you some extra power, and it has 60 Newton meters of torque, giving you that extra push you need for things like hills or carrying some extra weight for you. Now, this runs on a torque-based system, so a torque sensor, but it actually runs 3 different sensors to give you a really nice, intuitive, refined, very natural pedal assistance feel that just feels like you're in better shape than you normally would be, which is kind of the telltale sign of a good torque sensor. It doesn't feel like you're being pushed along, just feels like you're very capable. Now, it runs a torque sensor, a cadence sensor, and a speed sensor with some cool algorithms to give you that nice pedal responsive feel. Now, in terms of things like options when you're riding and pedal assist modes, you have 3 modes. You have Eco, Active, and Power, and all 3 of those will increasingly get more powerful as you go. And in terms of just overall ride quality, it feels really nice on the road. I'll take you out for a ride here in just a second and you'll see what I'm talking about, but it handles hills well, it handles flats with good acceleration, and unless you're doing something extreme, I don't see why you would need any more or want any more out of an e-bike, especially kind of an everyday lifestyle, recreational e-bike, commuter style. These type of e-bikes aren't built for crazy performance, but this delivers all the performance you would expect on day-to-day life. Now, when it comes to this battery, we have a 48 volt battery in the down tube. It's got a cover over the top. Now, this battery is removable. Let me show you how that works. It will come with a set of keys. You'll simply take the keys on this drive side here, or non-drive side, excuse me, turn it, and that will release the cover. Now, the cover you could just set to the side, and then you can pull out the battery itself. Now, this battery has a really nice feature on the outside, which is this kind of external display. You can push it. So say you take this off the bike for security, or maybe off the bike charging, you're getting ready to go, you can't remember the last time you charged it or what it was at. You can just glance at this, see exactly where your charge numbers are, and that just lets you kind of get that peace of mind knowing how much juice you have before you take it downstairs, throw it in your e-bike, and hit the road without that range anxiety that comes with not being 100% positive about how much you did just to go downstairs and turn on the bike and see it's not where you wanted it to be. Now, in terms of numbers on this battery, this is a 48 volt battery, and if you pull it out, you can see some kind of the basics of their math on the back, and it's got a 687.9 watt hour capacity. Now, this battery, UL 2271 certified, so it's meeting that safety requirements for e-bike batteries, which is a really good thing these days. And then on top of that, they say this has a 2-year warranty, but that also applies to the entire bike itself. Now, in terms of range, this battery combo with this motor and this bike, they say will get to between 40 and 55 miles on pedal assistance. So myself and a buddy from work, we both did a range test. He did the minimum assistance and he got 57 miles, so actually surpassing theirs. And for context, it's a mostly flat course, but it does have some mild rolling hills, about maybe 600 feet of elevation across the whole trip. He weighs about 180 pounds, so a pretty standard build. So really kind of ideal conditions, but with some real life rolling hills and elevation, and not only reached their 55 mile kind of top end, but even surpassed it by a few miles. So really strong numbers there. Then we gave the bike a rest. I charged it overnight and I took it out for a kind of max test, putting it on the power mode, going at the max speed, and I still got 35 miles. So really 35 to 57 miles on everything from the mild lower end eco all the way up to the top end power. Really solid range numbers and performance that not only met, but exceeded their range estimations, which I always appreciate. Now, to put this battery back, we'll simply just put it in the opposite direction we got it. You'll hear it click right in, take the cover, put it back on, and it's secured right back in place. All right, so let's talk about things like componentry and drivetrains, brakes, cockpit, the seats, the suspension, those areas. We'll cover all of that right now. So starting in the rear here, we have a Shimano Acera 8-speed drivetrain. Now that's got an 8-speed Acera derailleur, and it's mated to an 11 to 40 tooth rear cassette. Now up front, we have a chain ring at 52 tooth, and it's got kind of a cool cutout design to it and a chain guard to kind of keep your chain from rubbing on your pant leg or getting grease on you while you're riding your bike. Now the cranks here are 165 millimeter pro wheel cranks. They are aluminum alloy, and then you do have some flat plastic pedals included that do have nice traction studs and reflectors front and back for some visibility if you're riding in low light conditions. Now, in terms of brakes, they did a very solid job beefing up these brakes. We got Tektro HDE 3940 hydraulic disc brakes, which, while that sounds like a really fancy model name, the reason why I bring it up is because that E rating is an important deal here. So not only do we get e-bike rated brakes, but there's some things that come with that. We have a thicker 2.3 millimeter rotor where we normally see 1.8 millimeters. So that thicker rotor is going to be better at cooling, better longevity, and better stopping power. And then on top of that, the calipers are 4-piston, which we consistently or most often see 2-piston caliper brakes. Now, if you watch the channel, you know I'm not a huge fan of 2-piston caliper brakes on heavier e-bikes. This bike is almost 70 pounds the way it sits. And when you have a heavier rolling mass going down the road and you have a sudden stop, you want confident, beefed up braking, and that's exactly what they delivered here. 4-piston brakes, 2.3 thick millimeter rotors at 180 millimeter diameter, both front and back. Really, really nice stopping power. And then the extra perk on these is you have your E cutoff sensors in the levers. So if you're going down the road, you're using pedal assistance or you're using throttle, and all of a sudden something runs out in front of you, or you have an unexpected hurried up stop, that's when, as soon as you hit that brake lever, instinctively, it's gonna cut off power to that motor so you don't keep having to fight your motor and slow down. That will automatically get killed with the brake usage. Now on top of that, we have adjustable reach levers. So depending on the length of your fingers and how big your hands are, you can adjust that reach so it's either closer to you for smaller hands or push it out for larger hands, kind of just accommodating a wider group of riders and making it more comfortable for everybody who uses it. Now let's talk about the saddle here. All right, so this is the Momentum Lux saddle. It's about 8 inches wide at its widest point for your sit bones, and then it does narrow up towards the front for your legs to be able to still pedal without rubbing up against the side. Now underneath it, we have a nice carrying handle, which I actually really appreciate. Not all e-bikes have that, and it makes life easier when you gotta move it around. It gives you a nice place to just grab a hold of it. That's not gonna make you bend over and mess up your back doing it. On top of that, we have micro adjust rails, which allow you to move that seat forward or backwards in micro adjustments. And based on fit of bikes, your leg length, your torso height, your reach, all that comes into play. And micro adjustments on a saddle, while it seems like a very common basic thing, it is not always commonly seen on e-bikes. So it's nice to see them use that as well. We have quick release lever for the adjustability in the alloy seat post. And then up front, we have an 80 millimeter suspension fork made by SR Suntour, and it's the XCM34. It has a through axle support on the bottom, as well as preload chamber adjustments on both sides of these 34 millimeter black stanchions. And it's got a nice blacked out look in general. I don't like a bunch of decals all over things, and so I like the subtle look of this one. Now here in the handlebar, we have an alloy handlebar, aluminum, and it has a nice sweep back of 20 degrees with a 50 millimeter rise. Now the reason why that's kind of helpful is on performance bikes, the serious aggressive cyclists out there, they're always leaned forward because they're worried about aerodynamics and body position. But those of us riding on the weekends, commuting to work, we're not trying to race anybody at the Tour de France. We're trying to just get to work or go to the park. And that's when you want to sit up, you want to be comfortable, you want it to feel nice. And that's where that rise in the handlebars and that sweep back really come into play, along with the rest of the geometry, which gives this bike a really comfortable ride. Now on both ends, we do have the optional rear view mirrors, which we talked about. We have platform ergonomic grips that lock on. Now keep in mind, the throttle is an option on this bike, it's not standard. So if you don't get the throttle, you'll have just another black grip on this side that matches the other side. We have our Tektro brake levers here for the hydraulic disc brakes that do have the adjustable reach on them. And then we have under the bar trigger shifters with an 8-speed window so you can see exactly what gear you're in while you operate those trigger shifters. Now in the center, we have a fixed alloy stem that has a 31.8 millimeter bite. We have the optional headlight on the front as well. And then over here on the left side, we have the ride control display. So let's take a closer look at that, and then we'll jump into the ride control app and just see how this ecosystem works together to kind of just make riding and owning this bike that much smoother. All right, so this is the ride control dash 2 display. It's a nice color display. It's easy to see in all the lighting conditions that I rode it in, and I live in a really sunny place, so I kind of get to put it to the test in those conditions, and it did well. Now, if you want to kind of turn on the headlight, there's a button up top here on the right, and then there's a power button up top on the left. So we'll work with this one on the top right here first. If I hold it, that will turn on the headlight. You'll get a headlight indicator, and the screen will go, the screen will stay the same, but if you tap it, you can cycle through the brightness levels. Now, if you hold it again, that'll turn the headlight off. And even without the light on, you can still cycle through certain brightness levels of the display. I like to leave it on the full brightness. It doesn't draw a lot of power, and it's always nice and bright to see. Now, over on the left, we have a walking button indicator for walk assist mode. And below that, we have an informational button that as I tap it, you can see will take you through different metric numbers you can look at. So we'll look at, right now it's on speed, but if we wanted to look at the range, we can let go, and it'll say 62 miles. But as I go up in pedal assist levels, you can see that range will change. So now we're down to 37. If we go to power, 31. So I'll go back to eco mode, and then we can cycle through things like distance, 81 miles, trip time, 6 hours, 4 minutes, average speed on the bike so far, 13.3, max speed, 34.1, cadence, which is real time, so that's going to be at 0. Odometer is at 163, so quite a bit of miles on this bike so far. And we'll go back to speed, which is just where I like to leave it. All right, so you see it's in miles per hour, but if you want to change that to kilometers per hour, that is easy to do. You simply press and hold this I button right here on the bottom left, and you'll see it swap over to kilometers per hour. And you can go vice versa, just hold it again, and you'll go back to miles per hour. Now, once that is where you want it, you have your headlight indicator in the top left, you have your battery indicator in both a bar and a numerical percentage, which I prefer because it's more precise. And the cool thing about this bike when I was riding it, a lot of e-bikes, when you get down to 15% and below, they tend to lose the majority of their power, and they're kind of idling along until they fully die somewhere around anywhere between 2 and 7%. Most e-bikes will go ahead and just kind of call it quits. But this one kept really good power, almost full power, until about 3% left, and then at 2 to 1%, it did finally give up on me. But it maintained strong power through the whole life cycle of the battery display, instead of misleading stuff like saying you have 15% left, and it just doesn't have the muscle to even get up a hill. This one stayed strong until the very end, which was really solid actually. Now we have our pedal assist buttons on the bottom, and we have our power button up top. So what we'll do now is we're gonna go into the Ride Control app, which is made by Giant, which is the parent company of Momentum, and we'll see how this all integrates and what you can do with the app, because there's some cool features there as well. All right, so this is the home screen on the Ride Control app. Now you will see in the App Store, the icon for this app does say Giant, but again, it's Giant is the parent company of Momentum, so don't be just, turned away by that. This is the actual app for this bike. And it's got a nice layout to it. It has some recent updates with some cool features. Every now and then you'll see me probably tap a pedal assist button over here on the left, just because I want to make sure that I don't let the bike auto power off. After about 5 minutes, it will do so, and that will kill the connection here. So let's just run through the basics. It'll put your name in the top left, the battery on the top right, just an informational card here about the bike that has just some setting information and the color. This is the Mountain Air color. Now you can go into e-bike setup, and this is where you can make some adjustments. We'll go into speed limit setting, and here you can change between that 20-mile-an-hour speed limit to a 28-mile-an-hour speed limit. You're basically going to say that I'm going to follow my local laws by doing this, and I'm not holding them liable like most things, and we'll just confirm that. And you see it says successful, so we'll back out. Now we are in class 3 mode. Down here in systems check, this will scan all of the display, the motor, and the battery, and if it needs an update, it will apply that update. I'm not going to do that now, just in case there is one, so we don't have to sit here for 10 minutes while it does it. And then we'll go down to bike details, and this will give you all of the detailed specs about your bike. You can get version numbers and software numbers, hardware numbers, those things that support might ask you for in the event that you do have an issue or the bike needs an update. So we'll back out of the setup menu and go into connected devices. And you can see that the Vida E here is connected to the app. We'll back out and we'll go for, if you go to ride, you'll be given this GPS ride tracking, gives you a map, and it will have all your metrics while you're riding. And you can have different screens, like a bigger display if you want to. Say you have older eyes, or maybe your vision's not that great, and the thought of looking at the smaller display kind of concerns you. You can use this much larger display with your phone while you're mounted. So then you have your navigation, you have all your specs at an easier glance. Just up to you how you want to do that. So we'll go back to the home screen here. We'll go to plan, and this will let you plan a route. You can type in your destination and it will plan the route for you, which is really cool. You can go over to history and see your recorded ride history. You can go over to settings and change any personal settings, password, your app connections, things like that. If you want to connect your Strava to it, you can go ahead and do so. And app permissions, this is where you're going to give your phone permission to use, your app permission to use the phone services. And for those of you who don't want to let the app see those services, you can disable them there as well. Other than that, that's kind of the basics of this. It's got everything you need for just keeping track of your bike, planning your rides, recording your rides, checking the current state of all the hardware, firmware, and software, and updating it over the air, which is a really nice feature. And at the end of the day, the bike went ahead and powered off like I expected. But at the end of the day, it's a nice, clean user interface. Oh, let me turn that back on because I want to show you guys one of the cooler features on here, which is the lock feature, which they've recently added, which I think is really, really smart. So what they've done here is, let me connect again. And as you can see, even if the bike disconnects, it's a really quick reconnect process. But let's go to, is it e-bike setup? We'll go to my bike. We'll go to E-Lock. And what E-Lock does is it's basically saying, this is saying, exciting news, Giant's E-Lock feature is now available, giving you the option to add extra security to your e-bike. Don't forget to activate E-Lock for added protection. So we'll continue. And when I turn this on, I can now lock and unlock the bike's motor access remotely. So in the event you're in a public place, you see somebody hop on your bike, or you step away from your bike for a while and you don't want someone to be able to just throttle away or pedal assist away at 30 miles an hour, you turn off the motor lock, or turn on the motor lock, should I say, and that will prevent anyone from using the motor ability on this bike. And let's just be honest with each other, if this 70-pound bike does not have motor access, they're not going far and they're not going fast. So it's a really nice feature that's just gonna kind of disable the bike from any real potential use, which I kind of really appreciate them adding to it. But as you can see, everything from speed controls to e-bike locking and connected apps, ride planning, ride mapping, and ride recording, a little bit of everything. And it's a nice, solid user interface that's been really easy to use. And that makes up the Ride Control app. All right, we're out here on the Momentum Vida E+. E+ being, this is the e-bike version of their popular Momentum city cruiser style bike, which I also think it's equally a commuter as well. This one's got a 500 watt motor, goes to 28 miles an hour on pedal assist and to 20 miles an hour on throttle. So it's got all the speeds you're gonna need just for daily stuff. Little bump there. And speaking of bumps, there's one thing you immediately notice on this bike. Because of the frame geometry, you're sitting upright. It's a very natural, relaxed position. You also have a front suspension fork, an SR Suntour front suspension fork it's an XCM 34, so it's got 34 millimeter stanchions, through axle support, preload coil. And then you have tires that are 26 by 2.4 inch CST tires, and they have a nice commuter tread pattern, so they have grip in wet pavement and things like that, but no knobbies for off-road riding, which, just taking a quick look at the bike, you don't think this is gonna be an off-road bike anyway. But let's go ahead, when I get up under this bridge, we'll go up this little small hill, and then we will just play with the acceleration and the pedal assist up to 28 miles an hour and see how that works. But very, very quiet bike, very smooth too. Also, I noticed the handling on here is very natural. I mean, I don't think a lot about turning. It's kind of just intuitive and leaning, which is a really nice sign of good frame design, good handlebar placement, angles and sweeps. And even the Ergo platform rubber grips, they just make the bike very easy to ride. Let's stop it and go from kind of a dead stop to 20 miles an hour. And we'll put it on power, the highest setting. 3, 2, 1. There we go. I had to push the pedals a little bit just to get that throttle engaged. But we're already at 10, 15, 18, and 20. So not a speed demon, but also plenty peppy for everyday commuting, riding around town. faster than you could probably get up to speed on a regular bike, just without all the extra effort and sweat before you get to work or wherever you're heading. But let's keep pushing the pedals to 28. So I shifted, get some harder gears here, and right there, 28. I just felt it back off. When you hit that speed limit on e-bikes, you can feel the speed ramping continuously until you get to that limit, and you feel it kind of dial itself back and then settle in at that max speed. And that's exactly what I felt there. So you can get up to nearly 30 miles an hour with not a whole lot of effort and not a whole lot of space needed. Throttle takes you to 20. The display is pretty small. I can see it good in direct sunlight, but if you have a hard time seeing very small font, you'll want to consider, just the size of this display may come into factor for you. And aside from that, the only other gripe I probably have is the lack of any water bottle cages. Just feels like, I understand the down tube has the battery cover there, but the seat tube still has room for some mounting bosses, so that would be something easy for them to add. Doesn't cost a lot, but it goes a long way, just everyday practicality. But then again, you got front rack, rear rack, both are MIK compatible or MIK racks, so they can take all that extra gear that MIK interfaces with. And then what I did, I just took my water bottle for this ride and I put it in the rack bag, and it's nice and secure, doesn't rattle around, make any noise, so I can still take my water. All right, so we'll head up here. Let's go ahead and take it back and talk about how this performs, more so from, not so much from a review standpoint, but more so from kind of an ownership standpoint. Any kind of surprises you might have along the way, things you didn't realize when you're looking at it on the product page, service info, those type of things that are less obvious when you're about to buy something. And hopefully we can kind of bridge that gap before you do, so you have a heads up. All right, guys, let's talk about some of the things that are not so obvious when you're shopping for a bike like this. You go on websites, you look at the bike, you feel like you know everything about it, you get it at home, you ride it for a couple weeks, and you realize, oh, I didn't realize it had this, or didn't have that, or this was an issue. These are the times in the review I like to say, let's just talk about it from more of a realistic standpoint and talk about the things that just don't want you to be blindsided or surprised by things once you place an order. And we do this for all bikes. This is not unique to this one bike. So let's talk about the things that I think are kind of above and beyond and that I really like. And the first thing that's kind of overarching for the whole theme of the bike, and that is Giant's expertise in building bikes for decades and decades and being at the top tier of bike building. It just shows in everything they produce. We have nice components. We have thoughtful additions like the e-bike rated brakes, the thicker rotors, the e-bike rated chain. So that may sound like just marketing lingo. Well, it's an e-bike rated chain. They're all metal chains at the end of the day, but they're actually not, because an analog bike or a non-motorized, non-e-bike, the regular bike you grew up with as a kid, that has a traditional chain, and those chains have little rollers inside of them. And over time, the tension on that on a regular bike, the chains wear out, get loose, and you eventually have to replace them. But if you use an analog bike or a traditional bike chain on an e-bike, that motor pressure tension is constantly pulling a lot harder than your legs push on a bike, and it wears the rollers out on these chains quicker, faster, and ultimately leading to you having to buy a chain sooner. And as someone who builds bikes at home for a hobby, I had to buy a couple bike chains recently, and I was shocked to see that the prices now are somewhere between $30 and sometimes $70 or more dollars for a bike chain. So to see them put on just a more durable one that's going to stand the test of time longer, it's just going to be better peace of mind for you and less trips to the local bike shop to spend money on a bike that should be working great. Now, on top of that, we have internally routed cables here up in the headset. Personally, this is a bit of a double-edged sword. I love the look of internally routed headset cables. I do it on my own bikes, but the downside of it is it's extra maintenance. If you go to a bike shop and they have to work or pull cables, they will likely charge you an extra hour or so for labor, just because it requires a little extra time fishing those cables in and out of that headset versus when they come down and they can easily be pulled alongside the frame or down through the frame. The headset portion just gets very tight, and it's a little bit more meticulous work for that mechanic to start working on it. And then putting everything back together without pinching the cables just requires professional work, who knows what they're doing, and it can be just a little bit extra in labor. Now, on top of that, they also did a through axle on this fork here, and it's also got 34mm stanchions, so we have a nice beefier, less flex, more responsive upfront ride when we're riding, and a really good solid connection point that's easy to remove should you need to remove the front tire. A through axle is just better all the way around. So let's talk about some things that I don't absolutely love about this bike. I do think at this price point, roughly $2,500, having the throttle included would just be kind of a standard issue item that most people would expect. With that said, I do know people personally, and I hear it all the time on YouTube comments, that they don't want throttles on e-bikes. It just depends on the person. There's a camp that loves them and a camp that doesn't want them. And so I can kind of understand where Momentum is coming from. But with that said, none of these accessories come with the bike at $2,500. So this G2 bag, the rear racks, the fenders, the mirrors, the headlight, these are all considered additional accessories to add on to it. So that will bring the price up if you wanted to kit it out the way you see it. But having it kind of a la carte like that lets you keep the cost low for a really solid bike. You could pay that standard $2,480 and get just a genuinely good bike out the door. Or you could kind of piece together what you want to make it more just up your alley and a bike you like more with the accessories that you want. That way they're not sending you things you're just going to toss, because I've personally bought bikes that I took the fenders off and just threw them away. And then I have bikes I want to put them on. So it just depends on the person and the bike. And I can see from a design and building standpoint why we don't want to just throw a bunch of accessories at people who may not use them and ultimately just throw them away. So that's just my kind of thoughts on that. But all around, it's a really well done bike. It's a bike that I think is going to last you a long time. Quality parts, quality components, and really thoughtful, smart features and upgrades on the Momentum Vida E+. All right, guys, there you have it, the new Momentum Vida E+. As you saw, this is a really fun, nice riding bike. It handles really nice, it's smooth, it's very quiet, and that torque sensor on this motor is top notch. Now, in terms of, is it perfect? Of course not, no bike is perfect. I think at this price point, roughly $2,500, having the throttle included just seems like kind of a no-brainer to me. And I'd like to see water bottle mounting cages somewhere on here. But at the end of the day, those are pretty small gripes. And let's be honest, some people don't want a throttle on e-bikes. It's not everybody that wants it, so I can see where they're coming from. Now, if there's questions about the Momentum Vida E+ that I did not answer and you guys want to know, put them down in the comments. I will either reach out to the company and find that out, get it back to you personally, or I'll already have that information and just be able to reply quickly with it so you can make a nice, informed, and quick decision. Now, until the next review comes out, guys, I'll see you out on the trail.